All right, here's the hot water tank. It's usually about chest level. This one's a little bit lower. I only point this out. It does say hot. Please don't touch this when it's running because you could burn yourself. And every so often, we may ask you to hide keys in the hot water tank. This is what it looks like if you have to do it. It's just a little thumb twist lock that keeps it closed, and then it'll usually flip down like so. If you have to hide the keys in here, we usually just say toss them in there. It's pretty well hidden. You should never have to mess with anything out here, but if you did have to troubleshoot something for any reason, here's where you would check the water and see if it actually is hot by just opening this valve, and water would usually come out. Here's where you would check for a flame to see if it's lit and working. Just turned it on, it's hot. You can usually see the flame right down there and you can hear it. And then if you had to check the water temperature, pressure, you would just pop this little valve and you would feel the water and make sure it's hot. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. All right, fuel fill. Generally speaking, it's usually on the driver's side, but not every time. Always just check inside the gauge. Usually the arrow on the fuel thing, most people don't know this, is the side that it's on in your personal or any vehicle. All right, so with fuel, almost all of our units are gas. Even our Class A's are gas. The only ones that are gonna be diesel fuel is gonna be in the Mercedes. If you're not sure or they're not sure, please ask and just double check and make sure you're putting the right fuel in. That would be really bad if you put the wrong fuel in. Believe me, I don't want to charge you for something like that. It's never happened, so thank goodness, because people pay attention. Now, but with the fuel fill, we usually have these stickers on here. It says unleaded 88, 89 or higher. So we actually request that you use mid-grade octane or higher, especially in Colorado or Arizona, pretty much anywhere you go. They're usually standard twist caps. We generally don't have locks on them, so just like so. And please don't lose the cap. This happens every so often, and we'll come back and we'll see no cap on it. Yes, we're gonna charge you for a cap if you left it at the gas station. Please don't do that. Let's go ahead and talk about the water and sewer. I'm gonna touch on water first and then we'll jump into the sewer. Now, this particular model has a cap to fill up the portable water or freshwater tank, so to speak. If you are dry camping or boondocking, as some would call it, that means you're going to be pulling water from the reservoir. When you pick up the RV, everything is topped off and ready to go. You should have fresh water in the tanks unless you specified otherwise, but generally speaking, you should have water in the tanks. So on this model, it's just a twist cap. You will shove the hose that we supplied into this hole, turn on the water and fill it up. You'll know when it's full because it'll start overflowing. At that point, you're just going to want to cap it up. Now, some of the other models, which I don't have one here to show you, they're going to be direct pressure hookups to fill the tank, and you may need to turn a valve a certain direction or into a certain configuration. Jaycos are like notorious for this. They have these weird hookups and you've got to follow the dial patterns. They're 1 and 6, and I wish I had one to show you. Maybe we'll do a splice into one and give you an example or something like that. But generally speaking, your freshwater fill, make sure that the sticker says water or potable water only. Now, I also don't encourage you to drink from this water because it is coming from a faucet and a hose. Drink bottled water, bring bottled water with you. This is good for showers, brushing your teeth, washing dishes, yada, yada, yada. This particular one in the sewer system is where you have your direct pressure. So if you're staying at a campground, or if you're at a friend's house or something and you've got a hose that will send from their house to your RV, then we call that city water connection or direct pressure. So this one happens to be located in the sewer compartment. Again, it could be located on the outside. You just have to pay attention to the stickers to know which is which. Ask the representative to point it out to you so that way there's no confusion. There's a third and final valve that may be on the outside, which again, it's not on this one, and that's called your black tank flush, which I'll explain that more when we do the sewer. If it has that, please do not hook up direct pressure to your black tank flush because you will overflow your toilet. I promise you, you will, and you're gonna be miserable and unhappy, and you're gonna blame us, but it's not our fault because you didn't read the instructions. Make sure you hook up to the right connection, please. Thank you so much. All right, let's dive into the sewer. Not literally, got it. All right, now, some of these compartments will have these little plastic latches. Don't break them. They are plastic and they break easy, so just be careful with everything in the RV because it's flimsy. As I had already mentioned, city water connection is right here. This would be direct pressure into the RV if you're not boondocking, you have hookups, whatever. Again, these could be located in all sorts of various places. Sometimes this would be the same thing where you fill your freshwater tank and there would be a valve here to say fill or normal operation. You have a black and gray tank. So, gray. The gray handle is gonna be your sink and shower water only. Your black is your toilet only. The way that these valves work, which I don't know that I'm going to demonstrate right now because you never know, but the way that these valves work, they're called slide valves. They just slide in and out. Now, let me go over a few things real quick. One, the way that the levels are reading on the inside, whatever they read on the inside, it needs to come back reading the same way unless you paid us to clean it or dump it or whatever, and that's fine. And what I mean by that is black is notorious for showing random levels because of, you know, poop and toilet paper. It gets stuck on the sidewalls and on the sensors. There are ways to flush it, and I will go over that more here in a moment. But why I say that is because whatever the levels are reading, you have to bring it back that way. Otherwise, we will charge you $100 or whatever the price is to flush out the tanks for the next guest. Yes, you may have dumped it. Yes, you may have seen things come out, and no, the tanks on the levels on the inside might still be reading full. Guess what? You need to spend a little extra time and flush that tank because we have to do it if you don't do it for the next guest. Now, I don't ever want to hear, if any one of my associates ever says that the sensors aren't reading right or this, that, or the other, if it went out reading 0, it should come back reading 0. There should be no exceptions or rules to that. We generally know which units are not reading levels accurately, and we try to get those fixed immediately as possible. So if an associate for some reason says, oh, the levels, no, not okay. I'm the one that's giving you this rule. It's in my contract. Please make sure you bring these things back clean. We don't want to charge you, and I hate it because every time we do, customers want to fight me on it. Look, I'm not in the business to try to charge my customers for nonsense things, but we do need to make sure that it's ready to go for you. You're a customer, the next customer is a customer, and so on and so forth. So hopefully you get it. And if you don't want to mess with it, just pay us to do it and we'll take care of it. All right, having said that, when you go to dump your tanks, okay, you always dump your black first. Now, people don't realize how much they use their gray tank. If you're staying at a campground where they have what's called full hookups, which is going to be electric, water, and sewer, that means you're going to connect the hose, which I'll show you in a moment. You're going to connect the hose, you're going to pull it usually through these holes or whatever you have, however it works, and it's going to sit in a hole in the ground somewhere. Make sure that there's a rock on top of it or a cover or something so that the pressure from dumping doesn't make it flail about. Believe me, it happens and you're going to be really disgusted with yourself. But what I was getting at is, if you're at a campground with full hookups, you can leave the gray valve open 24/7. No big deal. You need to leave the black closed because it needs time to break down to turn into more of a liquid state so that way it flushes smoothly. When you do go to finally dump your black tank, if you had your gray open, close it. Make sure you close it so that way it doesn't kind of cross-contaminate one another. And there's another reason why I do that. If you left your gray open, close it, go turn on the faucet inside or something so you can start putting some gray water in the tank, which I'll explain in a moment. Pull the black lever and let it flush and dump out. Now, even before we get to all that, let me just show you the sewer hose. Our sewer hose we generally keep in the black trash bags. We try to keep them in the same compartment as the sewer. Sometimes that's not feasible, so it'll be with the supplies or whatnot. But again, it should be in a black trash plastic bag. We offer you, or we supply you latex gloves. Those are in the supply compartment as well. I encourage you to use them. Let me get mine on. I'm just gonna do one because I don't think I need two. All right, so, and these things tend to just be dirty. They just are. We rinse them out, we wash them out, but they never really dry, whatever. We always try to have some type of clear connector, whether it's on the side that's going into the hole in the ground, or if it's on the other side that connects to the actual sewer part itself. You'll have a clear cap, and the reason why is so that way you can see what's going on when you are dumping, not to gross you out, just so you can see when you're kind of done. But again, always check the gauges on the inside and make sure that it actually is done. All right, the way that these work, they have twist locks on them. Sometimes there's 2 prongs, sometimes they're 4. It doesn't really make a difference. And there's little holes on this, so this is just a twist cap. It'll twist off. All right, it'll twist off like so, just like that. Again, sometimes you'll feed it through the hole in the bottom or however. I'm just gonna show you as an example right here. And it just twists on like so. Make sure it's nice and tight and snug because it will come off and flail about. And again, I'm not gonna pull the levers here now because we're filming, but black tank. So I'd pull this lever out first. I would watch it in the hole in the ground and make sure it's all dumped. Then I would go inside and make sure that the levels read 0. All right, so as I had already mentioned, if you dump your black and it looks like everything has come out, go inside and look at the levels. If the levels are still reading higher than 0, you're gonna need to flush it. There's multiple ways you can do that. Some of the units will have what's called a black tank flush. If they have it, you would just connect a black tank hose or something of that nature to it. And it would be similar to this, something like this, and it would say black tank flush, or make sure black tank valve is open when you're flushing, etc., etc. What I do is this. If it has a black tank flush, I would connect it to this. I would close the black valve. Then I'll turn the water pressure on from the exterior and let it fill up. I will go inside and lift up the toilet seat and open the valve and wait till I see the water come up. These tanks could be 30 gallons, so it could take a good 5 minutes to fill, but please keep an eye on it. We've done this in the past. We've seen people do this in the past where they forget that they turned it on and then the toilet's overflowing. Don't do that. But that's gonna be the easiest way to flush out your black tank. Then you'll drain it because you'll have tons of water pressure at that point and it'll just usually suck everything and pull everything out. If you don't have a black tank flush valve, the only other real way to do it is take a big bucket of water, fill up the toilet and keep pouring water down, or take a hose, run it through the door or the window or something, kind of put it barely down the toilet so it's not all the way down, getting corroded. And you want to fill up the black tank with water is ideally what you're trying to do. Sometimes we'll take, like in the travel trailers, you can kind of shake them or whatnot and kind of shake the water around. If you're in a motorhome, you can drive around the block real quick. And all you're trying to do is just slosh your water around to make sure that you're getting all the sediment and things that are sticking to the sidewalls off, and it'll drain nice and easily. I usually say do this even before you go dump your black. If you know somebody went number 2 and used toilet paper, fill up the tanks anyways, and then drive it around, and then when you go to dump, it should be good and ready to go. And then hopefully it's one time, you dump it, and it's all good to go. Assuming all that's good, and you've dumped your black, and everything's checked out at 0 on the inside, go ahead and close that black valve. And then here's why I told you to have the gray fill up with water. Now you'll flush it with your gray, so that way it'll flush out the sewer hose and kind of rinse it out, and you don't have to hopefully mess with that. If you have any further questions, just ask us. But again, just make sure your black is reading 0. That's the big one that's always problematic, and this always gives people problems. And then lastly, the cap. There should be a cap on it when it left. Take a picture of that. If there was a cap on it, take a picture of it. We'll notate that, but don't lose our cap. People lose the caps all the time. These things like $10 to replace these little caps. So don't lose the cap, and make sure you put it back on so nothing is spilling all over your compartment. Again, not pleasant. All right, we're gonna move on to the next part.